Hi everybody, so here are the answers for pages 4 and 5. The first answer is a semi-breve. We've got the head with no stem. It's also called a whole note and it's worth 4 counts. The next answer there, we've got the head but also a stick, this time a stem, so that's a minim. It's not coloured in, so it's also known as a half note and it's worth 2. The next note is the coloured in head with the stem, so that's a crotchet, also known as a quarter note and it's worth 1 beat. And the final one there is the quaver, so it's got that flag, that tail at the top that makes it a quaver. It's also called an eighth note and it's worth half a beat. Underneath we have got now 4 crotchets last the same as 1 semi-breve, because if you just see there in my notes, crotchets are worth 1 beat each, so 4 of them is a semi-breve. Next one, we have 2 minims is the same as 1 semi-breve, 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 quavers is worth the same as 2 minims, again because they're all half notes, half values, so 4 of the halves equals 2. And then the last answer on that page, 2 quavers equals 1 crotchet, again 2 halves equal 1. So the next page, what are these lines called? They're called bar lines. So the vertical lines that show us the different measures of music, bar lines. And the final double bar there is called double bar line. It signifies the end of the piece of music. What are these numbers called? They're all time signatures. So they help us work out how many beats there are, how many counts there are in a bar. And in directions, what does the top number tell you? It tells you how many beats there are in a bar. What does the bottom number tell you? It's what type, so that's really important, what type. So whether they're crotchets, whether they're minims, etc. So what's the full meaning of 2/4? It's 2 crotchet beats in a bar. You must have 2 and you must have crotchet to get the marks if you were to do the exam. And 3/4 is 3 crotchet beats in a bar. We talked about this last lesson. The sign that can be used instead of 4/4 is a C, which signifies common time, popular time. So 4/4, you can also have a C there. Okay, so adding 1 note now. We have a crotchet and a quaver in the first example, because if we look at the bars, so remember, look at the bar lines, each section has to total 2. Next one, which is the 3/4. We have a crotchet missing in the first bar and a minim missing in the second bar. Third one, letter C. We have the minim in the first bar, a quaver in the second bar, a minim in the third bar, and a semi-breve there at the end, because each bar needs to total 4. And the final bar, we have a minim to give us 4 beats, a quaver in that second bar, a crotchet in that third bar, because we've got 2 crotchets already and 2 half notes, so we have a value of 3. Put the 4th one in, and then the final bar is a crotchet. Okay, last exercise. You need to draw the time signature in. So first one is 4/4, or common time. Second one is 3/4, 3 crotchet beats in a bar. And the final one is also 3/4. Now, just responding to some of the questions that we had on Zoom at the end of last session, some people wanted to know what's the difference between 3/4 and 6/8, because obviously both of those time signatures have the same amount of quavers in them. Now, this is really kind of stuff to explain as we get further on into the theory, but as a basic rule, what I'm drawing here is in a 3/4 bar, we group the beats in 3 groups of 2. So if you look at the 3/4 that I've drawn there, it goes 1 and 2 and 3, and so we've got 3 beats. In the 6/8, we have 2 groups of 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's really just about the way that you group these notes, and that's why it's 3/4 in exercise 6 examples B and C rather than 6/8, because we're counting in 3 groups of 2 rather than 2 groups of 3. You don't need to know the 6/8 time signature now, so really that question isn't going to crop up at this stage. Okay, so page 6, lots of information to read on 6 and 7 about how to actually write musical notes. So make sure you do have a read through it before you start doing the exercise. So what I'm going to demonstrate here to start off with is the writing on the stave. Now I'm starting with the 2 examples in exercise 1 on page 6, and I'm going to show you how to complete exercise 1. Now what we're doing is we're writing semibreves at the moment, so whole notes, and I'm going up the stave. The stave is what we call the group of 5 lines, so we write music on our stave. I'm going up the stave and writing a semibreve in every alternate line or space. So it always goes line, space, line, space. And as you can see from those semibreves on the first line that I've drawn there, they're going steadily up, 1 line and then into a space, then 1 line into a space. On the second line, what I'm doing now is I'm just showing you a few extra things that we all need to know. Now, what I've drawn there is a ledger line, because what will happen is when we get to the end of these 5 notes, we're going to run out of lines because we can't keep going line, space, line, space. So we have to add extra lines, and the extra lines are called ledger lines, L-E-G-E-R. And what that means is it helps us go further or higher when we draw the notes, because we run out of space when we have the 5 lines. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just showing you the 3rd line up. Now, if we count the stave as bottom line is line 1, and then we go up line 2, line 3, line 4, the top line is going to be line 5. Now, when we look at line 3, that's kind of it is our halfway mark, and that tells us which way we have to draw our sticks, because what I'm going to do here is I'm doing that middle note and I'm turning it into a crotchet. Now, that middle line, because it's a halfway, the stick can go up or the stick can go down, so the stem goes up or down. This is what I mean. So if I show you now, I'm starting at this on that exercise again. When we have notes that are below that line 3 of the stave, the sticks, the stems, they go on the right hand side of the note and they stick up. Now, like I said, that 3rd line, the middle one, it can go up or down. The one that I've just done now, because we're above line 3, the stems go on the left hand side of the note and they go down. It's just to keep it neat, so we don't have stems flying everywhere when we're trying to read music. So main rule is on the 3rd line, anything below it, sticks go down, stems go down. Anything above it, stems go up, and then anything above the middle line, stems go down. And I'm just showing you there with those extra notes with the ledger lines. Same rules apply. Anything below line 3, stems go up. Anything above line 3, stems go down. So just really make sure you know which side you're drawing the stem as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am showing you, firstly, the 5 notes that go on the line. So these heads, they go directly through the middle of a line and they sit in a line. And then the 4 notes here that I'm doing now that are notes in the spaces. So the semibreve doesn't go through a line, it sits in between 2, okay? What I'm doing now is I'm just going to turn them into minims. So remember that rule about minims and the way that the stems point. If it's below the middle line, the stem points upwards on the right hand side of the head, the semibreve, and if it goes above the middle line, then the stems need to point downwards. Okay, just turning these into quavers now. Read the note in the book about the flags, the tail parts. They always point to the right. So just have a look at what I've done there. Pause the video if you need to, just to remind yourself. Okay, so we're going to assign notes now, actual pitches, to the notes that we've been learning. And I will talk more about this from the piano at the end of this lesson. Now, we have our 5 lines, our stave, and we're going to concentrate firstly on that 2nd line up. Now, that isn't called the note G when we start assigning it to a clef. Okay, so a clef helps us work out where the pitches are. And we're going to look at, first of all, the treble clef. If you are a soprano or an alto singer, or playing anything with your right hand, this is what you would be reading from. Now, we start on the G clef, so that's going to be the 2nd line up, and we do a backwards C. So look at my pencil, it starts on the 2nd line and we do a backwards C. So it's kind of a very elaborate way of showing the reader that the 2nd line means that that note is a G. Now the backwards C, it goes up, but it bends towards the right, as you can see. There's another one. Okay, now the line continues and travels downwards vertically through the centre of the note like this. Okay, here it is again. So backwards C, it curls up to the right and then it comes back on itself and goes directly down through the middle. Now, the final part of it, we do that all again, but we add a little tail, a little flick going to the left at the end. Exercise 1 on page 8 is to practice doing that, so I would get a good 12 to 14 of them written, so you really get the flow of how to write them. Okay, it's very, like I said, it's basically just a very elaborate symbol to show the reader of the music that the second line is assigned to the pitch of G. Okay, now talking about pitches, we'll do more of that at the piano. Pitches are the how high or how low a note is when you hear it, and notes are assigned between the letters A to G. Okay, so a note can be A, B, C, D, E, F or G. There is no such note as H, so it's never going to crop up. When you get to G, the pattern just continues back again to A. So A, B, C, D, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, G, and so on up the pitches. Okay, so I'm going to show you some notes of the treble clef. So we start and we turn our stave into pitches now by adding a clef. If there's no clef, there's no pitches. So the clef shows us that we're going to be looking at different pitches of high and low. That's my ledger line because I'm starting below the 5 lines. So I'm going to start here by putting my semibreve, my whole note, through that ledger line, and that is the note C. Okay, it's also known as middle C on a piano. Okay, next I am going to continue like we did on the previous page exercise. I'm going to draw my whole notes, my semibreves going up through every space and every line until I get to the top of the stave. If you want to practice this at home, by the way, I'm going to put a link on the descriptions on the YouTube account and on the video as to where you can just download and print off manuscript paper. A quick Google search will show you where any of these are though, if you want to practice this out of your book. So like I just said, this is the note C, it's called middle C. It's a very important note to start our reading off, okay? So there's a ledger line that sits below the 5 lines stave, okay? Like we said before, the note that follows C is a D. So carrying on up the alphabet, we are now assigning each space and line as we go up with a letter. We got to G, so we go back to A. E, F, and G. And obviously if I was to carry on, the next note would be an A. That's all you need to know for now though, so get used to those. Just to help with those remembering of the letter names of the pitches, I'm just going to draw here and give you a little thing that we teach everyone to help remember these. Now what I'm going to do is I'm drawing the semibreves in the 4 spaces between the lines. Okay, now those 4 notes, they make up the word face because we've got an F there. If you look at the top line to help you, we've got an A, a C in the 3rd space and an E in the top space. We always count from the bottom upwards. So 1st space is the F, 2nd space is the A, 3rd space is the C, 4th space is the E, which gives us the word face. So face are the letter names. And then you can work out your notes above and around it. So obviously if the note is below the F, it's going to be an E. Think about your alphabet. If it's an A and it's above, it's going to be a B. Now these are the notes in the lines. E on the 1st line, G 2nd line, B middle line, 3rd line, D 4th line, and F at the top and the 5th line. Now it doesn't obviously spell a word, but we have little words that we can, sentences that we can remember this by. The one that I was taught as a kid is every good boy deserves food. But you can have anything that you want really that might help you remember where the placement of those treble clef notes is. Okay, to finish off with, I've given you a few word problems to try and solve. So here they are. So each of these whole notes, they spell words out. Okay, so each note needs to be assigned to its correct letter. For example, the first one, we have B, E, and D, which spells the word bed. You can see there the pictures. Pause the video, have a go through numbers 2 through to 5 and see if you can work out what they are. Jot them down somewhere and then I'll give you the answers in a second. So number 2, is the word dad, D-A-D. Number 3, cabbage, C-A-B-B-A-G-E. And finally, number 4, age, A-G-E. And number 5 is bag, B-A-G. Hi everyone, so I just wanted to come to the piano to show you, after we've learnt all the treble clef notes, why that is important in terms of pitch, because by adding that treble clef, that G clef, that symbol of showing us where pitches are on a stave, we're talking now about pitches and sound, so high and low, and the letter names that we've learnt, C, D, E, F, G and A, they get assigned to a certain pitch. So I'm going to show you on a piano how that works. Now, even if you don't play the piano, it's kind of a really good basis for you, because you can visualize and see how, as notes get higher, pitches get higher, and so on. So I'm going to explain that via the piano. Obviously, if you're learning piano, then this is really helpful. And if you don't play piano, maybe it's a good chance to get a little keyboard and have a go. So I'm going to talk you through those notes that we've just been writing out and the notes that you'll be doing in the exercise and how that relates to a keyboard. Okay, so this is just to show you some of the pitches that we've been writing out in the exercise. Now, even if you don't play piano, this is really useful for you to hear how this works in practice. Now, basics of a keyboard, if you are looking at it and trying to work out where the pitches are, keyboards are arranged in black notes of groups of 2 and 3. So we get a group of 2 black notes, then we have a little gap, then we have a group of 3 black notes, and a little gap, and so on. So it's always a 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3 pattern all the way up the keyboard, okay? So if you can just see that here, the 2 and then the 3, okay? Now, on a keyboard, that note that I talked about in the lesson, middle C, very important note. It's the first note that you learn, or should learn, when you're having piano lessons actually. Now, the middle C is always on a keyboard or piano where we get the title of the piano's maker. So this is a quai, and it sits, the name of it sits in the middle of my piano here, okay? And we look downwards, and middle of the piano is that note there. Okay, so if we're looking at the 2 black notes, the white note that is just below it is that middle C. So I'm just going to put that there for you to see. Okay, so that's middle C. Now, you know from the treble clef notes that you've been doing, the next note after C is what? The next note after C is D. Okay, now listen to C, listen to D. Okay, the pitch of it is higher, okay? That's reflected in how you draw it on the treble clef, because as you go up the treble clef, the pitch goes up as well, okay? We're only looking at white notes at the minute, okay? Black notes are sharps and flats, and that's a whole other lesson. The next note, so what follows the note D? It's going to be the note E, okay? So C, D, E. Now, if you just look at C, D, E that you've written on the treble clef in your work, or on the video that I just did previously, part of the video, you'll hear the pitches going up as we travel up the stave, okay? The note after E is F, okay? Now F, easy way to find F on a keyboard, we've got our 3 black notes, F is the white note just below the group of 3, F. Also, E and F are next door, okay? I won't tell you the technicalities of what that means until we need to in a future lesson, okay? The note higher than F is a G, okay? Now remember, there's no H, so we then go back to a A. So the next note is an A. Now A, if you want to look at it on the keyboard, it's in between the 2nd and 3rd of the pattern of 3 black notes. A. 1 note higher than A is going to be a B. There it is. And then what follows B? C again. Now, there is obviously one there is more than one C. This is when we're talking about when we're singing a low C or a high C. Are you singing a low C or a high C? Okay, because the pattern just repeats itself. So this series that I've talked about here is the whole of the keyboard, whether it's down here and a low pitch, or whether it travels all the way up the keyboard and it's at a high pitch. I've started you on middle C, and we've just done what's called the first octave. Octave, 8 oct. So it's the first 8 notes of the keyboard, okay? So just to recap, middle C, it's found in the middle of the piano, middle of the keyboard. It's the white note that's below the group of 2 black notes. D sits between the 2 black notes. And again, listen to the pitch. The pitch is rising as we go up the keyboard. This on your stave, as we go up the stave, the pitch rises, the level, the highness or the lowness. E is next. Again, it's a note higher than D. It's below F. There we go, F. And then the next note is the G. Going up to A. Going up to B. And going up to C. Now, just wanted to show you also, we talked about when we assign that word face to the notes in the spaces of the treble clef. Now, we've got the F and the A and the C. I've left those from before. Now, we know that this note is going to be what? Because it's the note above C. So what's the note above C? D. So the note above D is going to be E. Okay, this here is where those pitches are for the word face that we spelt out on the treble clef on the stave. F, A, C, E. Okay, F, first space of the treble clef. A, second space of the treble clef. C, third space of the treble clef. E, fourth space of the treble clef. Okay, so there is your orally, that's what we've been working on, okay? Similarly, if I wanted to do the E, G, B, D, F, every good boy deserves food, there they are. Now again, look at them on the piano. It's like on the treble clef, and this is why I'm always saying it's really important. If you can read music, it makes everything so much easier. You can see between the F and A that there is another note. Just like on your treble clef, there's that other note. We know that the other note is a G. We've got an A and a C, so that's your second space treble clef, third space on the treble clef, okay, A and C, we've got the B in the middle, and then finally C and the E. Again, that's an E, but that's also an E. Look at them in relation to each other. Group of 2 black notes, the white note after the 2 black notes is an E, okay, whether it's higher pitch or whether it's lower pitch. I hope that's been useful.